This was a year filled with mistakes for the WWE, in my opinion, and I'm sure it's not my opinion alone. The ball was dropped on many characters, many storylines, so on and so forth. Common complaints that we've had in recent years about the WWE, and they definitely fit in 2014. And in fact, to the point where I don't really think, other than the most dyed-in-the-wool WWE kind of sheep fans, you get a whole lot of defense of this company. There were a lot of mistakes in 2014. Let's just be perfectly honest here. And trying to spin those mistakes as anything other than mistakes is kind of completely, totally idiotic of us to do. The only way things are going to get better, and this is something the WWE seems to fail to understand, the only way things ultimately get better is to be honest with oneself, admit one's shortcomings, and find ways to get better. Well, if you never see a problem, you never improve because you don't see any reason to get better. Therefore, you don't try to figure out a way to actually get better. Lots of mistakes in the WWE in 2014. A lot of them. But at the end of the day, when I came to this category, I knew there was only going to be one option and one option alone. And that option was going to be the runaway winner. It was probably going to garner 3/4 to 80 to maybe even 85 or 90% of the vote. And it absolutely did. I don't even want to give this one a drum roll. The WWE's biggest mistake of 2014 was ending the streak at WrestleMania 30. And I can see why so many people think that is the biggest mistake of the year. Because in a lot of ways, I believe it to be as well. Ending the streak was something that a lot of us maybe never wanted to happen, never wanted to see happen, but someday maybe deep down understood it might have to happen for the benefit of the business that we love so much long term. But we wanted to be the right guy. We wanted it to be the right situation. We wanted it to have the right follow-up. We wanted it to have the right positive consequences for the business long term if it was something that was going to happen. Instead, what we got was a knee-jerk reflex decision by an increasingly senile and out-of-touch CEO and chairman of the board, Vincent K. McMahon, something that led to other disastrous things. And all the while, all you basically did at this point in time, the way it looks, was you ended the streak at WrestleMania 30 so that way John Cena could feud with Brock Lesnar over the period of several months. I mean, this was just bad. It was a crappy feud. It was poorly written. It was poorly booked. Then we got a crappy build-up to the crappy match at WrestleMania 30 with a crappy finish and a crappy feeling payoff. There's no doubt in my mind why so many of you feel like this was the biggest mistake of 2014 because, this was a affront to you as a wrestling fan on so many different levels. You didn't see why this happened. You didn't see how this could happen. You didn't agree with this happening when it did. And who was the one that got that ability to do, or honor to do that, if you will. I mean, there's just so many bad things about it. This was something you only had one chance to get right if you were ever going to do it. And it is so often the case with the WWE, they found the way to completely and totally screw the pooch with it. Because there was no long-term planning. There was no long-term vision of where you go. It was just, we'll do it, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. And that's not a successful business model for any damn body. I mean, from an in-ring component, from a storytelling component, from a product component, there is no doubt that the biggest mistake of 2014 has to be ending the Undertaker streak at WrestleMania 30. And when you're voting as a wrestling fan, that is beyond question going to be the runaway winner. And me voting as a wrestling fan, that is the runaway winner. However, I will throw this monkey wrench at you a little bit. As bad as the decision was to end the streak at WrestleMania 30. And there's no spin. It was dumb. It was stupid. And the people that have defended it before, accept it. It was stupid. It sucked. Just accept it. It was bad. It was a dumb, terrible mistake. I don't think it was the worst mistake that the company had in 2014. I think that was the WWE Network. With the WWE Network, here was the WWE trying to sit there and say that the way they had done business in the past was becoming increasingly archaic and was not going to be able to be sustainable much longer. And the time had come to do something dramatically different. And I applaud them for that, for recognizing that there was a problem and trying to come up with a solution. But when you look at the WWE Network, you're talking about something where the company has basically undercut a $50 or $60 per unit revenue stream to go to a $9.99 per unit revenue stream. They've gotten to the point where, with this product, where they're so desperate to get people to subscribe to the network that they're mocking people and making fun of people for paying full pay-per-view price to watch their pay-per-views through a cable or satellite provider. This is the WWE Network, where they've written it into the shows multiple times in promos, a talking point that it's $9.99. They're bringing in people to specifically promote the network for $9.99. They're having segments like McMahon appearing on Austin's podcast specifically happen on the network because they want people to desperately get eyeballs on the product. They've had to give free weekly trials away. They've had to sit there and give away an entire month in November of the WWE Network, free. And it still hasn't worked. This company acknowledged they needed about 1 to 1.2 million people to make this network a success and at least have a break even, if nothing else, for the company compared to what they used to get with the old pay-per-view business model. And after almost a year, they can't even get to 800,000 subscribers. And that's not just domestically, that's factoring in internationally. They still, to the best of my knowledge, don't have the WWE Network fully available in the United Kingdom, one of your biggest and most important international wrestling markets you have. This has been a complete and total, up to this point, unmitigated disaster. It doesn't mean it's going to be a failure, but as of this moment, it has been a failure. It has not been good. And I don't care how much the WWE and Vince tried to spin this thing, that it is a subscription model and it takes time and so on and so forth. You sit there and say that this many millions of people in this country and all around the world have this affinity for your WWE product and follow it, love it, plunk money down into it. But yet you can't get even 1 million out of all those millions upon millions of people each and every month to plunk down $9.99 for your what is designed to be primary breadwinner, the WWE Network. There's a significant problem here. It has affected so many things that the company has done. To me, from a pure business standpoint, the WWE Network is a far bigger disaster and a far bigger mistake than the disaster of a mistake that was ending the streak at WrestleMania 30. From a pure wrestling fan standpoint, I completely agree with you guys. Ending the streak was the biggest mistake of 2014, and I see why it was the runaway winner. But at the end of the day, I really think the truly biggest mistake of the WWE, and this was not necessarily something done just as a fan, and mistake didn't necessarily mean having to sit there, like Punk going to sign with UFC or ending the streak, something in terms of in-ring component or on-screen component. I think regardless of any of that, the biggest mistake by far that this company had was the WWE Network. Because what real good has come from it? All you see are bad things and negative things that are a direct result of the decision to launch the WWE Network, the way it was done, how it was done, when it was done, why it was done, where it was done. Everything about this has pretty much been a disaster.